Troll. Definition 2, used as a noun. A troll is a person who makes a deliberately offensive or provocative online post. If you've been in the FNaF community for a while, you probably heard this word used for Scott. In fact, even if you aren't that much into the community, you probably heard Scott described as that, which isn't far from the truth. The first couple years of the FNaF series has had Scott doing many trolls through another account claimed to have hacked Scott many times, that account being named L.O.L.Z.H.A.X. At a later point in the series, we also got a character named after that account. So let's dive into the history of the account and the trivia around the character of... The first time we heard the name of L.O.L.Z.H.A.X was back in the time of FNaF 3's hype cycle. On February 15, 2015, Scott Games for some reason shut down, causing a lot of confusion in the fanbase, some even speculating that he was hacked by someone and that he was doxxed. Scott would later post an update on FNaF 3's Steam page saying he was hacked and someone released FNaF 3 early, and told everyone to click the link to see who did. Going from that link to GameJolt, we would find out the person responsible was someone under the username L.O.L.Z.H.A.X. In the description of the game, L.O.L.Z.H.A.X would say, "This is the real FNaF 3 hacked from Scott's site today." Upon downloading the game and opening it, you would see a convincing looking title screen for FNaF 3. However, when you click play, it will actually start up a game that was a small reskin of one of Scott's older games. There is no pause button, which is where Scott's character, also known as Dude, came from. Now that wouldn't be the last time we see Scott use the L.O.L.Z.H.A.X account, as on October 28, 2015, we have a similar story on the FNaF World site, where on the coda site, L.O.L.Z.H.A.X would leave a message saying, "I mean it. It's gonna release the game tonight at 6 PM CST. Take me seriously. You'll be sorry. I will post the link right here." Later that day, we got the link to supposedly FNaF World. Though, once again, it turned out to be another reskin of one of Scott's older games, this time being Fighter Mage Bard. Sadly, further troll games wouldn't have the appearance of the L.O.L.Z.H.A.X accounts, probably because Scott knew that if he did the hack trick again, no one would believe him, so he did alternate ways of posting troll games. But he did not forget about L.O.L.Z.H.A.X. In fact, he had a plan to make L.O.L.Z.H.A.X from a small troll account into an actual character. In Freddy in Space 2, L.O.L.Z.H.A.X is the main antagonist of the game. He is a robot with a monitor for a head that shows his face and all of his expressions. There's also a button on his chest that flashes on and off, though what it's used for is unknown. His name actually stands for something, that being Logarithmic Online LAN Compatible Zero Error Hydraulic Auxiliary Xylophone, which simply means he's a xylophone connected to the internet through a local network that is powered by water who calculates to the power of 10 to add additional support to anything he's connected to, and have no chance of failure. I think. I could be wrong. In the story of Freddy in Space 2, L.O.L.Z.H.A.X is a state-of-the-art robot who used to be connected to the main Lunar Base of the FAZ squad. He was fully integrated into the base systems and would be able to control everything, though eventually he would go rogue and take over the base, brainwashing Bonnie, Chica, Foxy, and the puppet, and making monstrous clones out of them. He also trapped Freddy's son outside the base while he was playing, so L.O.L.Z.H.A.X could get him out of the way. Freddy's son would send a distress signal to Freddy, in which L.O.L.Z.H.A.X cuts him off so he could taunt Freddy, saying he would watch Freddy's son take his last breath. L.O.L.Z.H.A.X then tells Freddy to stay away or die, which only leads to Freddy to come into the base to take L.O.L.Z.H.A.X down. L.O.L.Z.H.A.X would appear multiple times throughout the game, mostly taunting Freddy and the gang in the first mini-boss of the level, then running away to leave you fight another mini-boss in the middle of the level, leaving Freddy's crew to fight the final creation of his while he runs to the next area of the Lunar Base. He also appears before each secret boss, which these arenas are apparently L.O.L.Z.H.A.X's personal files. Seeing Freddy's groupies there infuriates him so much that he draws powers from all corners of space to create one of the 4 secret bosses. While L.O.L.Z.H.A.X talks a big game, he usually just cowardly runs away until the final area of the game, where Freddy has cornered him, and Freddy and L.O.L.Z.H.A.X finally come face to face for a showdown. L.O.L.Z.H.A.X tells Freddy to behold his true power, which he then starts to run to side fairly quickly, shooting lasers here and there, though if Freddy and friends are careful, he can be defeated pretty easily. Once defeated, a The End card would appear in the middle of the screen, though the game doesn't actually end. Going forward, you can see a path going further down to the final boss area, where Freddy's troops then encounters Final Forms, the supposed final form of L.O.L.Z.H.A.X. Final Forms has L.O.L.Z.H.A.X head, which is most likely his actual body, which is doing its doing and powering the rest of the tank body. He has 2 main arm blasters, multiple other monitor screens, and large spiked tires. This form is much more powerful compared to his previous form. He can now fire missiles, some electrical waves, and more to kill the Fazbear crew, even applying a neon wall to protect against their attacks. While being a tough battle, eventually the group of animatronics do defeat Final Forms, but the game still hasn't ended yet, so they continue down into the deepest pit of the area, coming face to face to L.O.L.Z.H.A.X's actual final and most horrific form. This form is quite a sight to behold, his main body seemingly to be merged into the sensor monitor of the new form. He has a massive set of speakers, shoulder pads with spikes, large clawed hands, a fanged skull with a monitor embedded into its forehead, the spiked wheels from his previous forms at the bottom, and finally, a large blue ram skull with large metal fangs with flashing reddish-orange eyes. His attacks have become absurdly powerful, and his health pool becoming massive, making it quite hard to kill him as the only way to damage him is to attack his head. His attack includes finger guns, which fire more electrical waves from the pointer fingers of both hands, and spikes that come from the ground which activate after the finger gun attack ends. There are also monitors on the sides that shoot electrical waves downward into the sides of the arena. After a long slog of a battle, eventually the game will defeat L.O.L.Z.H.A.X completely, destroying the final form's head and causing a golden cake to fall from the head, and once collected it will give the player $100,000 in-game and actually have the end screen show up, which will be different if you beat the game in 30 minutes or not. Besides that, L.O.L.Z.H.A.X doesn't have much else to talk about, though one thing I like to talk about is the similarities between some of L.O.L.Z.H.X's forms and other media, which both the FNaF Wiki as well as the AAA Fazbear Wiki mention. The first one the AAA Fazbear Wiki mentions is that Final Forms looks a lot like the first Eggman mint from Sonic CD, which, while not being too specific, I assume it's talking about EGGHVC001, which when comparing the two, I can see some semblance with the arms, though besides that there's not much else to compare. However, the wikis also mentioned the final form of L.O.L.Z.H.A.X looking similar to Wolf Sigma, who is Mega Man X's final boss, which I agree with this comparison, as the setup of the arena is almost the same, and the only damageable part of each box is the head. I also agree with a secondary comparison that the wikis bring up, that being that his form also looks like a combination of Omega Flowery and Azrael Dreamer, both being from Undertale, from the neutral and true pacifist routes respectively. While that's all the info for L.O.L.Z.H.A.X in the game he came from, he actually appears as a background decal in Phaser Blast in FNaF Security Breach, as Phaser Blast is basically just an attraction based on Freddy in Space 2, which is pretty neat. Though that's everything that you could learn about L.O.L.Z.H.A.X, both Scott's original troll account and the character from Freddy in Space 2. If you enjoyed the video, please sure to subscribe for more, and check out the video on screen right now to check out previous FNaF Trivia on Doomfred, another obscure FNaF spin-off character.